Hey everyone! Today I want to talk to you guys about shadow work. First, what is the shadow self? And how do we, or more specifically, how does our shame create the shadow self? To understand the shadow self, we have to think about the mask that we wear when we go into society. So, we're taught from the moment we're born, what is acceptable to share. You may have parents who didn't allow you to express your emotions. So maybe you've hidden, heavy emotions such as anger or frustration or sadness. Maybe you've learned that you have to hide that away, that it's not okay to share that part of you. So whatever parts of us we are taught that are not acceptable to show are the parts of us that we tuck hidden away. And because it's hidden, there is automatically a sense of shame associated with those things. It's almost like, because I have to hide it, I should be ashamed of it, And that is where that shame relationship comes. So in order for us to release shame, we have to we have to start analyzing the parts of us that we've kept hidden. And we've got to ask ourselves why we feel the need to hide them. Why is that part of me tucked away? If it's truly a part of me and I'm denying it just to be accepted or to be liked or to feel validated, doesn't that kind of mean we're abandoning a part of ourselves? So it can really cause a divide in our psyche. And that's why it's just not a good feeling. And so we look at our mess. Most of us don't like to look at our mess. That's why it's called our shadow side. So if we don't look at the mess, even though we don't acknowledge it and we're like, okay, it's over there, I don't got to deal with it, it starts to seep out in other ways. Shame can make us act different than we would in a different situation. Sometimes we become triggered and it is connected to that shame. So if we don't look inward and if we don't deal with these things, these parts of ourselves that are hidden, and give them validation, give them acceptance, and say, hey, it's okay, you're human, these parts of you are okay. Then they seep out into, toxic habits and limiting beliefs and essentially change the way that we interact and show up in the world. Now, if you decide to look at your mess and turn inward, and unravel your shame, that's a different story, I like to think of it in terms of a big ball of string or wool or whatever, and your shame is wound up and tangled. And on one end, the free end, the one that we can reach in our consciousness, is our trigger. Okay, and if you follow that trigger into the mess of wool and you follow it to the other end of that string, you're going to find shame and the messiness. And following that back, you can ask yourself, where is this coming from? When did I start hiding this part of myself? Why did I start hiding this part of myself? Do I still believe I have to hide this part of myself? And if you can get to a point where you can look at that shameful part of yourself and say, hey, maybe it's not so shameful, maybe it is human. Maybe it is normal, and because we don't talk about it a lot, because it's hidden so much, that's where the shame comes from. So it kind of relates to my video yesterday where I talked about, being vulnerable with our shame and opening up, because there's something special about somebody else showing you their shame. It's almost like, Brene Brown, she talks about it. It's almost like shining a light on the shame kills the shame, because shame cannot survive out in the open. Why? Because if you come to me with something shameful and I can, relate to you, I can empathize with you, and I can say, hey, you're not alone. You're not alone. You're human. I have felt that so many times. There's that connection, and that connection is like a lifeline. It lets you know, wow, I'm not alone, and I'm okay if I feel this way because other people feel this way too, and then that's how we release the shame. And as we start to untangle all the strings that lead to different things that we keep hidden that are all related around shame and judgment, self-judgment, we release ourselves and become more ourselves. We feel freer to expand into who we really are, because when we don't look for outward validation anymore, because we are giving that to ourselves, because we are accepting those messy parts of ourselves, it's very freeing. You're no longer controlled by the judgments of others. You're no longer controlled by the opinions of others. And you can fully feel confident in the person that you're becoming. I would love to share something that I wrote in my journal this morning. It says, but if we have the bravery to look at the mess, to speak kindly to these ashamed parts of ourselves, to forgive our past, to remind ourselves that we are human, when we can give ourselves the things we yearn for from others, we heal the parts of us that were hurt by that abandonment, both from the external source, the person who hurt you, and from you, because that's the deepest cut of all. When we realize we've been fighting for outside validation, for outside approval, acceptance, and love, so much so that we lose ourselves in it, the deepest cut is the realization of our own self-abandonment. In the pursuit to be accepted by someone else, we lose ourselves. Most of our journeys inward or back to ourselves begin with this revelation, this realization. Almost always there's a level of anger felt here, which really pushes us towards reclaiming ourselves. And that brings us full circle to embracing our shadow self. It's crazy because, I was thinking about even 2 years ago when I was training at InShape. I'm such a different person now. I was even reflecting last night that my mentality, even at work was, mind my own business and don't step on any toes and just kind of be surface a little bit. Now I feel so much more depth within myself. And the connections that I'm making these days are deeper than I've ever been able to connect. And before, I always yearned for a group of friends or to feel accepted. And when I finally learned to accept myself, the beautiful thing was that because I embraced myself, the people that I was seeking, that good group of friends who I could lean on, support, they found me because I had the courage to be what I was looking for. And if I didn't have that courage, I never would have found them, So I encourage you. Be brave, embrace the shadow self, explore your triggers, and you're going to find so much light within yourself. You're going to transform. Remember that you are human, that anything that you find in there is human. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing that you have hidden in there that can't be dealt with. Even your deepest shame comes from something that you've been through. And most of the time, those things are not your fault. And even if they are your fault, if you can grow through them and forgive, you can become a better person. And that's the beauty in it, No more time dwelling in the past and bringing ourselves down and beating ourselves up. No, we are better. We deserve better, and we will do better. Have a good one, you guys. Happy weekend. I'm so excited to go out and play. I hope you guys are going to make some time for you as well. I will talk to you soon. See you later.